my people. And if you're watching live, checking us out on YouTube, or listening on your favorite podcast provider, you are most definitely my people. Welcome to another episode of Botched, and Share Shots. We still have high hopes of delivering quality wrestling content, but if not, we'll sprinkle in the guys from Perched on the Top Rope, so we still get over. I'm your host, a chef by trade and a mark by choice. I am the Will Gray, and tonight, my people, we are joined by some very special guests. Joining me first, he is the lead host of the Smack Raw podcast. He is host of the Rewind and UWO. He is Mr. Kyle Tyson. Kai Tai, how are you?
I'm good. Hi, Alex.
Hi, Kyle.
Hi, Alex.
I have something special for Alex. He's coming.
Oh, boy.
Thank you for having me on, Will. This isn't about me.
No.
Thank you.
It's my show.
Hi, Alex.
Alex, you're coming, I promise.
Sure am.
I'm going to mute Kyle every time he does that. Also, joining me tonight, former Dirt Sheet writer. He is host of Perched on the Top Rope. He is coming live from the Hasbro Bar. He is Mr. Lee Walker. Lee, thanks for coming back, buddy. How are you?
I am doing fantastic, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm a little disappointed after last night's episode not winning.
It was a rough one. Like, it was not our best showing. I still say that Justin was, he was a little bit privy to some of those questions. And while I'm on topic, joining me for the first time, ladies and gentlemen, he is one of the co-hosts and producers from Perched on the Top Rope. It's Alex. Alex, how'd you screw us over so bad in Jeopardy, brother?
Listen, man, all I did was make up questions. I don't know what you're talking about. I just tried my best. It's not my fault that Kyle is just not good at Jeopardy.
Oh, you were going to get it, Alex.
It was a rough show, man. Me and Kyle we had the running joke, and we told you before we ever went on the air last night that it was like, how terrible can we actually do on a trivia-based show? Because until last night, he and I had finished in last place or close to last in every one we've ever done, right, Kai?
Pretty much. I've only done good on like one trivia show, I think, ever. And I want to say Justin was on it too. But yeah, no, it was bad. It was a bad showing. I blame Alex. If you had just included Juggalo Pro Wrestling, like I originally asked you to.
That seems like
In my defense, you asked me that once we got live and got on the air. That's not my fault.
We were on the air for 2 hours. You could have got some questions in. I'm just saying.
I guess.
If I logged in for a wrestling Jeopardy and one of the topics was Juggalo Wrestling, I would be more upset about that than I was with the fact that I had to worry about TNA Impact, guys from the early 2000s. I was like, okay.
Yeah, it is. Allison says it is like a matter of being on the spot sometimes too. Like the one I missed about Kenny Omega, like that plagued me all night. Even after the show, I was like, how did I miss that? It was so obvious, and yeah, part of it you do blame on being on the spot.
That one was pretty blatant. I thought that was one of the easier ones.
Shut up, Alex.
Guys, I answered the correct answer with Bryan Danielson, and then on the very next question tried to answer the same thing with the same person after answering the question correctly. Like, Alex literally said, Will, that was the answer to the last question, and I was like, oh, fuck, you're right.
And you gave it. You, of all people, gave that answer, too.
It was my answer, and I still fucked it up. Gentlemen, this is where we start. Every time, I always ask the same question for everybody. What has you pissed off for greatness tonight in professional wrestling? Alex, all I'm saying is, what has you the most worked up right now in what's going on with wrestling?
I got to be honest, this is something that has been brought to light in the past couple days. For once, it's not a WWE issue with me, which Lee would probably find surprising because, in the past, up until the recent takeover by Triple H, I was usually complaining about something WWE related on our show, Perched on the Top Rope, almost every week. But this week, I gotta say, the drama and the heat that's going on with this Hangman Adam Page CM Punk issue backstage at AEW, it's kind of making CM Punk look like an asshole.
You see the stuff we were just talking about in one of the group threads with the people burning shirts. They've said he needed a heel turn. Do you think this is the time and place and moment when that needs to happen?
I'd say absolutely, because at this point, I think the more we find out about this situation, I think you're going to start seeing these fans, these hardcore AEW fans that most of them know a lot of what's going on behind the scenes because they're on the internet all the time. They're going to start turning against him eventually anyways. And, you know, I'm not there. I'm not backstage. I can't say what 100% happened and, like, who started what, where the heat began. But, like, Punk going into business for himself on AEW was just kind of not cool in my idea. You know, obviously we all know Punk to be very open when it comes to saying anything live on television with a microphone, but he was very specific when he joined AEW, saying that he was there to put over younger stars. He was there to make things better. And, you know, it's just, it kind of seemed to me like this is almost the exact opposite of what he was planning on doing. So, like I said, he's kind of coming off as an asshole to me right now.
I agree. I don't think it's the moment in time. Yeah, we don't want to do the babyface versus babyface showdown it all out with him and Moxley, but I don't think the drastic turn he's making is necessarily the move for the time. Mr. Tyson, Mr. Walker, 2 cents on the CM Punk thing?
I mean, go ahead, Kyle.
No, I insist, my friend.
So mine's kind of the same gripe. Like, it's what's got me pissed. So, dating back to WWE, we've known CM Punk to be, and I quote, the voice of the voiceless. Bringing up how Davey Boy Smith Jr. was just recently released, saying the name of Chris Masters, who was improving on his in-ring ability, guys who were just recently released, was he ever really the voice of the voiceless? Was he ever really anything that he built himself up on TV? Or is he just being like his theme song, the cult of personality? Think about it. We've all heard the stories of CM Punk backstage of being somebody who would rather sit in a corner and not talk to anybody. That's just like Brock Lesnar. That's how Brock Lesnar is. It's how we've always, known these things to work out. We've heard in interviews, in DVD, like shoot interviews, CM Punk often being very difficult in the back, not work related, just an antisocial kind of aspect. Very stubborn in his own right. So here we are in AEW, and let's be honest, he lost a lot of steam with his failing run in UFC. So now he needs to capitalize on pro wrestling again. He gets to AEW, is he what everybody thought he was? I don't think so, especially when he fucked over Colt Cabana, which has been an issue about this whole thing when he went into work with, did the work himself, the shoot on Hangman on Wednesday, right?
Mm-hmm.
How, you got to probably think that, the situation with Colt Cabana plays an effect, considering Hangman is part of the Dark Order. Who's part of the Dark Order? Colt Cabana. But I mean, who have we not seen on TV? Who have we not seen with the Dark Order? Colt Cabana.
Right, to piggyback off of that, when Stu Grayson and a couple of the other Alan Angels and them, when they left AEW and they had that segment with the Dark Order on television, they made it a very strong point to say, we 5 or 6 or whatever it was, now 1 less because Anna Jay's in the JAS. They made it a very strong point to note that these are the members of the Dark Order, basically almost saying that, Colt Cabana's not with us anymore.
Yeah, we haven't seen him on TV, and if, we see the favoritism like we've seen with Tony Khan with wrestlers, the favoritism with CM Punk, we're probably not going to see Colt Cabana within AEW, though we know, I believe he is signed a contract with Honor, so we're probably going to see him jump ship and be part of Ring of Honor again. But regardless, the drama with fucking CM Punk is disappointing, to say the least. It's disappointing.
Right. Like, Colt Cabana was there first. I get that Punk draws money and whatnot, but Colt is almost an AEW original. He came in a little bit after they started, but he's closer to an AEW original than a lot of the other guys on the card. And, I mean, like I said, the man was there first. And obviously, like, there's no reason to take that out on Hangman Adam Page, who's, sold his soul for that company.
Kai, you got anything to throw in?
Yeah, this is I mean, it's a lot of speculation. You know what I mean? I don't feel like our words really can carry much weight. We're speculating on things that we're seeing, like stuff that we're hearing on internet. Like if you think about it, like if you break it down, this whole thing falls apart really quick. Like it's dirt sheets. People are upset, and then we spin our own narrative to it. You know what I mean? We create our story behind it. It's no different than like high school drama and people just picking sides. Like we're not there behind the scenes. And this is not me standing up and saying like CM Punk's like some like idol that needs to be defended. I'm not really defending him. I'm just saying this is just like one of those things that like I don't know. Like it feels silly for me. It feels silly for me, like because it to me it strikes me no different than if you were to say like one person has beef with another person because that person was a dick, and like is a new like friend to the group, and you just lay all out this drama, and then you're like, what do you think about it? And I'm like, well, I don't know. I'm not in that circle. It's not really my place to really say anything. And with Colt Cabana not being on television, I mean, dude, I hate to say it, but no one's tuning into AEW Dynamite to watch a Colt Cabana match or a segment. Like, let's be honest here. Like, no one ever was like, Colt Cabana is going to be on TV. This is must see. We have to go watch it. Whether or not CM Punk has any reason why he's not on television, I don't think if CM Punk was in the company, we'd be seeing much Colt Cabana to begin with anyways. There's a lot of guys that were there during the pandemic that are AEW originals that let's just be fair, were part of like the startup because they were big indie names, but it feels like tribalism, like high school friends and cliques, like just pick a side and fight for your friends. And that's really just never been my thing. Like I'm a very much like I enjoy what's in the ring, and then like all the backstage stuff. Like I like to comment on what's been proven and what's in court, like the Vince McMahon, all of that stuff. I feel comfortable commenting on that because that has been tried and true. Like there's investigations, that stuff's been proven. Everything else just feels like hearsay, and I've always felt kind of icky commenting on hearsay. But as far as people turning on CM Punk, I think you guys are absolutely right. I think that he is polarizing, and no matter where he goes, crowds are going to react for him very strongly. People like you guys right now are like, you're invested in like this drama. So if you were at a live show, you might be inclined to boo him loudly, and then there might be other people there that are inclined to cheer him. CM Punk is just not somebody that people are apathetic towards. And so that I think this is proof of it. Like CM Punk's always going to draw. Right. Yeah. So I don't know if I had a point in there. I don't know what it was, but that's my spiel.
I think my biggest issue was more than anything, it's not even the Colt Cabana stuff. I obviously had to comment on that because that's supposedly what led to this. I think my issue was more or less the call out of Hangman Adam Page on Dynamite, knowing that damn well that wasn't part of the script. It just felt very downfall of WCW-ish to me. It reminded me a lot of the shoot segments that we saw towards the demise of WCW, where we were just like, what the hell is being allowed to be on TV right now?
Well, what if Hangman interrupts this title match that happens on Wednesday and it's a triple threat? You know what I mean? And it turns out to be a triple threat at Double or Nothing. You know, I think it's early to say. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a dickhead move, though. Like, I ain't gonna lie to you. Like, I'm not sitting here and saying, like, if everything does play out kind of like how it's being spilled, it does sound like an asshole move to attack somebody who cannot get involved in the segment, and it kind of just does make them look like ass. But yeah, who knows, man? Who knows? Time will tell. But that it is what it is. That's for sure.
Mr. Walker, what has you pissed off for greatness this evening?
I mean, it was that.
Oh, it was the CM Punk show.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Kai Tai, you got something for me?
You know me.
You're always
I'm
chill
a
as
hu-
a cucumber, man. You're never mad about anything.
I look. I get upset. I do. I want to comment. I kind of want to like use this as an opportunity to like um okay, you know what? I'm upset that a lot of people lost their jobs today. I think it was today, right? It was either today or yesterday over NXT UK, like pretty much just got gutted. Um, so I'm not really mad about it. I would think I have an idea on the situation where it does seem like, you know, you're putting out a product that nobody is watching. Like I think literally the only people watching that NXT UK was Steven Larson at Going in Raw. Like that is like the only people I know. However, uh the optimism, like the optimistic side of me is like actually like now like you know the UK indie scene might begin to flourish again because the UK indie scene was like picking up a ton of steam right before NXT UK. So I'm hoping we run into something like that. I've heard what's that thing they're talking about doing NXT Europe or something
NXT
next
Europe.
year. There's no real details other than they have something in the pipeline for that though, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm wondering if that's just going to be like some like touring like with a couple like almost like NXT is tours in Europe and has a couple UK guys instead of trying to create a UK exclusive brand. I wonder if that's what that is.
I think the one that pissed me off the most out of the releases is releasing Trent Seven made absolutely no sense.
He's in the tournament, right?
He
That
was,
hasn't
yeah.
concluded yet. Like,
Yeah, and he was literally in the middle of a feud with Tyler Bate. They just broke up Mustache Mountain. Trent
right.
Seven was actually picking up steam as a heel. Like that was one of the reasons that some people were actually tuning into NXT UK recently because they did that turn out of almost nowhere, and like that was actually it was interesting. Like I was into it, and now he's gone. This feels very Vince McMahonish.
Well, this wasn't the first time they've done that. They've had people on TV. They did it in the 205 live stuff with people. I can't remember what he was when he was in WWE, but he's Blake Christian now on the Indies. He came in and then he did some 205 live stuff and then was released. And then that night on WWE TV had a pre-recorded match that went on air. So it was like, this isn't the first time we've seen WWE do this. There was also the issue with Tyler Bate showing up at Heatwave because apparently the UK title match hadn't even aired yet. So people were like surprised to see him with a belt because he wasn't the standing champion over Ilya Dragunov yet, right?
Yeah, they had literally just showed on WWE's Twitter account last week Ilya Dragunov relinquishing the title.
Yeah.
It was just on Twitter like a week ago. So they hadn't even concluded the tournament yet. And like speaking of people that got released when they were just in a segment too, let's talk about like Aleister Black was another similar situation. He had literally just started a feud with Big E on SmackDown and he got released the next week.
He was doing the Dark Father stuff.
Yeah.
Like he was arguably putting out the best vignettes and stuff. Like
yeah. And then was released a week later after he returned.
Just done. And you think about what they did when they brought back Selena Vega and everything, because that was her husband and that was the wife, and he was a key impact on bringing his wife back, plus all the political stuff behind the scenes with her dad. And then you incorporate it, and then when they get her back, then they turn around and release him. Like some of that release, all of that stuff happened last year and in the end of 2020 didn't make sense with the way it was handled. And Kai's right. Like seeing it bring up in NXT UK only rings the question, what are they going to do over there? Let me ask the three of you a question, though, especially you, Lee, as somebody who comes from the same boat I'm in with your taste in wrestling, coming through the territories and the NWA stuff. What do you think about NXT Europe being a governing body for the European independent scene, where they do tour and do house shows, and WWE NXT UK is where they're bringing in independent stars to work with the NXT Europe superstars. So it's a way to kind of govern the independent scene in the UK and Europe.
I mean, I thought that's what NXT UK was supposed to be. I thought it was going to be, basically the end all to the independent scene over there. Unfortunately, that really wasn't the case. And WWE had other plans too. It was talked, before COVID, it was talked about NXT Japan or Asia, NXT Mexico, and all these different NXTs in different locations, and that was going to be their way to, I don't want to say kill the indie scene in other countries, but it was going to be their way to start opening up to start competing in other countries. New Japan Pro Wrestling, that's in Japan, AAA in Mexico, or CMLL, if that's still around. I don't know.
They are.
Okay, cool.
I got you, Lee.
So like, over in Europe, like, I don't really know any of the big promotions that are over that way, but there's a lot there for them to work with. So originally, I thought the original intent for NXT UK was going to be a way for them to do that. So if that's the case, then NXT Europe is just, as of right now, for what we know, is just basically what NXT UK was, but it just, a name change, whatever. Who the hell knows what they're doing? But I thought that's what the original intent was. I thought it was going to be a way for them to, have guys over there like Dave Taylor, William Regal, scouting, going to those promotions, since those guys are from over there, scouting local talent, get them signed to NXT UK, get them through the NXT UK system to get them ready for, TV, get them for, for NXT, and then have them for, the main roster. I just saw it as the European stepping stone to get to American television. That's really what I thought it was, because I'm not, honestly, like, to me, there's too much damn wrestling on television. There's wrestling I'm not going to watch. I did not
100%.
watch NXT. I did not watch NXT UK. Out of all the names that were released, I could pinpoint maybe 2 or 3 that I knew, and the rest I was like, oh, okay. I didn't know who they were. No offense to any of them. There's too much Thursday at like 2 o'clock being on here in the States, especially not being on television, but being on an app. Yeah, I'm definitely more likely to not watch it at that point also.
You and everybody else was put in a position like you guys are going to have to choose. Like, okay, wrestling fans, here you are. Pick and choose your shows, and unfortunately, there wasn't really anybody picking NXT UK. You know what I mean? It was the now, granted, eliminate stuff like like AEW and maybe like Impact and a couple of these other shows, and maybe NXT UK does fit in that schedule. But at the end of the day, you had like so many major weekly shows. Some of them are just gonna fall by the wayside for a lot of people, and that's what it was, man.
And I think their biggest downfall too was the fact that they weren't on television, because most people, if you didn't have the network, you had no access to NXT UK.
Yeah, and the time too was no help. Thursday at like 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, whatever it was. I'm at work, just like the rest of America's at work for the most part. We're at that time, we're at work, and furthermore, we're not going to try and catch it on the replay. If it was on TV and it was at least televised and taped, I'd be more likely to catch it then. Put it on when Impact is on. No one can find that on fucking Access anyway. Most freaking places don't have that as a freaking channel anyway. So for, someone like me or Alex, we got to watch that on YouTube. Well, I'm not going to YouTube to watch it, just like I'm not going to AEW Dark. I'm not going to AEW Dark Elevation. I'm not going to watch any goddamn YouTube show. I'm going to watch it if it's on TV. That's it, plain and simple. Like, that's...
And it's unfortunate too, because if you actually had the chance to pay attention to the product they were putting out, NXT UK probably had the best pure wrestling out of any television pro wrestling wise that was on TV throughout the week. They just never had the platform.
The venue was incredible, like that inside, how it looked, incredible. I love that, but at the time I'm not catching it, and by the time I'm trying to catch up on other wrestling, that NXT UK was the last thing on my mind.
Agreed. It was pretty far down the list for me as well, but playing off of something Kyle said, talking about call-ups, Santos Escobar is about to get called up from the NXT 2.0 roster. What do you guys think about how they should use him on the main roster with Triple H at the helm?
Put him in a big feud right away. Make him make a splash. It's not hard to make somebody feel important is you have to make their debut feel big. Like that's all it is. Like have him come out, fight one of the major guys, like have him come out in either challenge, attack, whatever. Just avoid the cliche like first like feud of like Dolph Ziggler, Baron Corbin, Sheamus. Like no offense to those guys who are great, but that instantly lowers the perceptional value of a wrestler is when they start off there. It's such a longer climb to feel important than if you can just have a guy debut in the and beat John Cena like Kevin Owens did. Think about it. Like Kevin Owens was a main event player day one because of that debut match with John Cena. Now, not everybody has to come up and beat, a bona fide WWE Hall of Famer, on their debut, but put him close to that and you'll feel special, man. I think you'll feel special.
Lee, you got 2 cents?
I gotta agree that first impression means everything. We know Vince didn't pay attention to NXT. So when some of these guys are getting called up and we see them in stupid segments and this and that, we already know based off ratings, most people who watch Raw aren't watching NXT. The NXT ratings compared to WWE are literally in half. So you have to go in assuming that your main roster fans have no idea who this guy is. So he needs to make a splash. He needs to make an impact. He needs to be given the feeling to the fans that this guy's the new number one guy coming in and he's going to be unstoppable, or he's going to be the best technician we've ever seen, or the best high flyer we've ever seen, or just the best in the game in general. He could, have him spit it better than anybody else. But he's got to go in there and he's got to feud with a top dog. Now, if he's going to SmackDown, they've got a clusterfuck of a bunch of people already, after Roman Reigns, which has made SmackDown a hell of a lot more interesting as we've seen the ratings go way up. If he goes to Raw, depending on how they want to use him, I would say Raw might be the better fit. And Kyle says not a cliche person, but give him what we should have gotten from Andrade. And you want his first feud? Seth freaking Rollins.
Who is
not
still
the direction.
He is still not the heavyweight champion, Lee. He's not the Universal Champion yet. Still not the Universal Champion.
No, he's still not the Universal Champion, but Seth is a guy who's, an on-top guy no matter what. So he can sit there and he can give, a heck of a show and put somebody over, win or lose.
Honestly, not the way I thought you were going to go, Lee.
Well, Alex, let me ask you a question. You haven't been on the show recently. I did have somebody send in a question for the panel, and it's a post-Roman WWE. If you were in charge then, Alex, who do you think you would book to take the belt off of Roman now that they do have so many guys?
So, okay, let me preface it with this question. Are we, by taking the title off, are we talking about the unified title goes to the next person, like both titles go, or title split in this scenario?
Well, I've got a follow-up question that's going to bounce right behind you. So let's assume that they keep the titles unified for right now.
Okay, so if they keep the titles unified, and I know this sounds a little cliche because they have the pay-per-view coming up, but I think if they keep the titles unified, I think the best person to take the titles off of Roman is probably Drew McIntyre. And I say that because Drew McIntyre was white hot during the pandemic era. He basically carried the company on his back with his WWE title reign. That being said, he obviously never really got that opportunity in front of the fans to do the same, which we all know because we saw the beginning of his push right before the pandemic started and the fans had to leave the arenas, where the crowds were going insane for Drew McIntyre. Not to say that they're not behind him now, but there's not that frenzy that would act up when he would come out, like when he won the Royal Rumble, when the fans were still in the arenas. So I think Drew, with all the work that he's put in over the past couple of years, deserves that. I think he deserves to have another crowning moment in front of the fans to cement his legacy as a top guy. Because, in my opinion, I think when Roman finally steps down and walks away from WWE, I think Drew McIntyre is still going to be there. I think he's going to be there until the man retires. And I think there's no better person suited to take both titles off of Roman than Drew McIntyre.
That Drew ain't getting a belt unless they're being split up. Like, I hate to burst the bubble, man, but if they ain't splitting up those belts, then Drew ain't getting them. Like, Drew won't be the one at like even at Clash of the Castle. It's just, I feel like WWE's perception of Roman's value is they need that guy with a belt around his shoulder at all times. They're gonna need it until he's taking vacation for a long period of time. I just don't see them doing it, man. Like, I feel like if McIntyre is gonna take a belt off Roman, it's only gonna be one of them. They're gonna break up those titles again. We're gonna have a champ on Raw. We're gonna have a champ on SmackDown. I just can't see the scenario where they just strip Roman of the belts at anywhere prematurely of WrestleMania,
Right.
Because that's what we've built Roman for, right? Why has Roman been champion as long as he's been champ if we're not going to dethrone him at WrestleMania? Like, no offense, Clash of the Castle is awesome. A stadium show in the UK, that's amazingly huge. It's still not WrestleMania, though.
They're not going to put 50,000 people in that stadium the way they did SummerSlam. It's not going to be a bigger match than Roman and Brock by a long shot. Call it what it is. I mean, I'm not taking away from what they're going to do in Cardiff. It's going to be a phenomenal show. The card looks like it's going to be great. They're going to put on a hell of a production. But it's not going to take away from the fact that Roman and Drew will not put on the same match that Roman and Brock did in the Last Man Standing match. Lee, let me get you in here on this conversation. USA is apparently starting to get a little bit pissed off with the fact that, one, Roman is part-time, and two, they don't have a title on Monday nights every week anymore. Do you think this could be the early rumblings of an issue with WWE's TV deals with USA, which has been a long-standing partnership?
Yeah, it's happened in the past. I mean, and Kyle's brought this up on another show that we were on. The whole ordeal. SmackDown got a Hell in a Cell match, and Raw. No, USA.
No. You're right. I still find it one of the most hilarious things that took place.
So Raw is, in the USA Network is like, well, where's our Hell in a Cell match? And we got the strangest Hell in a Cell match in the world of fucking Bobby Lashley and Xavier Woods, like.
Who killed it, by the way. That was actually a very entertaining match.
Xavier Woods did tear the house down. That was a great match.
It was.
Thank you for the follow, Kill Jeff. I think that's your name, Kill Jeff. I don't know.
I was about to say, he commented that you had a cute kid. He's a good buddy of mine. He's a chef friend.
He just followed us on Smacked Raw, so big thanks, man.
He's got a Tennessee Titans podcast, too, so shout out to Tennessee Titans.
I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah.
No, you're good. It was something unexpected. It's like we've seen this in the past. Let's not forget they've had a rocky relationship in the past as well. WWE was not on the network for a while. They bounced around, if everyone remembers, when they went to TNN.
Yeah, I was breaking the TNN deal, yeah.
Spike TV too.
Spike TV,
Wasn't that like advertised originally as like the Man's Network? I can't remember what it was called.
Yeah, it was.
It was Network for Men.
Yeah, it was.
Spike TV was killing it for a while because I think there was actually even a little bit of an overlap with right before Raw went back to USA, where Spike TV had both Raw and TNA both on their network.
They also had UFC as well.
They did.
Like they were crushing it for a minute there.
Yeah, they had a good thing going. I don't know what the hell happened though, but so we've had this rocky relationship in the past. Does it affect things? Roman made it clear in an early interview that he would be retired by 40. So the fact that we have him working part-time, I guess, is a gift to us because WWE hasn't figured it out yet on a newer star. And he's at a good level now, but for him to be part-time, this is the time he needs to be he needs to be full-time. Doesn't have to be wrestling full-time, but he needs to be seen on TV. He needs to be seen on TV a lot. You are the champion. We as fans need to see the champion. We don't see the champion. We're like, all right, what the hell do we have to watch? Why are we watching this? The main champ's not even on all the time. This kind of sucks. So the USA Network, who does not have Roman Reigns on all the time, you see it in their ratings. Their ratings are lower than what SmackDown's ratings are on the Fox network. Can we attribute to Roman being part of that? Maybe. I mean, the Raw ratings had been down for a while because the show had sucked. Let's be honest, call it what it is. And it's gotten better thanks to Triple H as of late, but yeah, it's an issue. It's always going to be an issue. Like if your champion is on SmackDown and the other back in the day when they had the draft, if you were a champion, if you were the heavyweight champion, whether women's, men's, you were on both shows. He's got both titles. He should be on both shows. I don't care if same with the Usos. We see the Usos on Raw more than we see Roman Reigns, to be honest with you. So if they're able to be on both shows, where's your champion?
I think that's how they put him on by proxy, is with the Usos. Like, here's the Roman segment. Even though he's not here, we got the Usos, we got Paul Heyman, we got Sami Zayn now. It's like it's their proxy of Roman.
And it's not that hard of a solution too, because in my opinion, do what SmackDown Live did in 2016 with John Cena, right after the draft. Cena was on SmackDown for a while, almost every week, but he wasn't wrestling every week because he was transitioning into that part-time aspect. But he made a point of being on the show every week, even if it was just for a segment to give a boost to the show, but he didn't have to wrestle every week. Do the same thing with Roman on Raw. You have him wrestle on SmackDown here and there, but you can just have him show up on Raw and, basically hype up matches with people on pay-per-views.
Yeah, I mean, it's the nature of becoming bigger than the show, though. Roman has worked his way into a very favorable contract to where the company values him. I mean, look at what we were all saying about CM Punk just a moment ago. How like CM Punk has such a high stock in AEW and can start calling his own shots. That's where Roman has worked himself to, is that position where he doesn't have to come in all the time. Like he's slowly, I feel like from like the spectrum of part-timers, from Cena was like one of the most active part-timer stars and Lesnar was like the least active part-timer star. And now we've got Roman like somewhere in the middle of those two. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where he's going to sit. My gut is this is it. Like, this is what we're going to get. Once Roman goes into a program, he might be on a little bit more frequently for like a month or two during the program. But I think this is the Roman we get until ultimately he's dethroned, and then he truly becomes the big four attraction, popping up only for WrestleMania, SummerSlam, maybe like Royal Rumble and stuff. I that's just how I'm interpreting his position.
I think it's a shame too, because obviously I think we can all agree on this. We're getting the best Roman Reigns that we've ever gotten out of his entire career right now. Fans have, we've bitched and moaned for years that we wanted Roman Reigns off our TV screens, and he was just there in every segment of the show 24/7. Now they've got a character behind him that everybody's borderline obsessed with, WWE fans at least. Yeah. And, all we want is more of Roman now, and he's not there.
We wanted a Roman that acted like he didn't give a shit, and now we got it. And part of not giving a shit is not being there weekly, man.
It's the same thing that happened with John Cena too. Once John started, it's kind of like what we're getting with Cena now. Everybody's always asking where Cena is. When's he gonna wrestle? When's he gonna be on TV? And longing for him to come back.
Non-wrestling fans asking about Cena. Yo, is Cena wrestling? Like that's
sadly not.
Okay, get in here. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got a lot now since you guys have talked. Kyle had said that he doesn't see the titles being split up at Clash at the Castle. I can see it happening now, and I have good reasons, especially after all this talk going on.
Yeah.
Reason number one, it's well rumored that they're bringing the draft back. Number two, Survivor Series is always Raw versus SmackDown. They're going to want a Raw champion and a SmackDown champion in the men's because otherwise you got Roman Reigns literally doing nothing unless you add a fourth person to the bloodline and the bloodline represents SmackDown on the blah blah the Survivor Series match itself, and then Raw has its randomness. But I don't see that happening. I see the titles being split up for Roman, but they're going to keep the one on Roman that he's held the longest to keep that streak going.
Mm-hmm.
Which would be the Universal title at over 700 days.
Yeah, so they'll keep that on him. He'll lose the other one to Drew. Drew has that on Raw. Survivor Series, Roman wins it back, and we see the Usos with the same thing. They lose their titles at some point, but they, for the Raw versus SmackDown deal with Survivor Series, they win them back. And then, we see we see basically the resurrection of Bloodline 2.0, basically, where things calm down a little bit, but they come back hot, heavy, stronger, better than ever. So I can see the belts being taken off. It's just going to be the Raw ones and the one Roman hasn't held for a while.
Right.
Because we do need to keep it interesting just because we have all these new people for him.
Yeah.
Well, when Drew takes the title to Raw, that gives Karrion something to do. Now we're going to have Roman just exclusively back on SmackDown. Now USA is happy, and now Fox is, and Fox will probably be mad for a little while, but they've got good ratings, so they can't be that mad. But we're going to see it only be a short time just to appease USA Network for a little bit. So, yes, I see it playing an effect, and that's the effect I see it playing, Will.
Now,
my thing wasn't that I didn't see Roman losing the belts. And I may have said it wrong. My thing is Drew wouldn't win if they didn't intend on splitting the belts. Meaning if they were just going to keep the belts like both together, I would say Drew wouldn't win. I think if the belts are going to be split, that's the way I could see a victory for Drew or somebody else.
It's the only way. way.
But Roman ain't going to drop both titles. No, he can get screwed out of one.
Now, can I just interject for a second because, obviously, Will, I had asked you with the preface of, is this if the titles are split up or if they are not? May I give my opinion on what I think would happen if they did plan on splitting the belts up? Because that plays into why I picked Drew McIntyre for the unified belt.
Absolutely. Go ahead.
So my theory was that if they were to split up the belts, I feel like that is not as much of a crowning moment for Drew McIntyre. I mean, he's still winning the WWE Championship. That's awesome. Happy for him. But I don't know what could be bigger for his career specifically than winning both titles in Cardiff, in his home continent and all that. The reason I also went with that is because if you split up the belts, you could have Drew win it. You could have Karrion Kross win it. You could have the two of them build towards a program for WrestleMania. You could start a slow burn basically right after Clash of the Castle, and it could result in a WrestleMania match. Whereas Roman, there's the obvious choice that he is most likely going to WrestleMania to face The Rock. It's pretty well known at this point, unless something happens with Rock's schedule, that he's going to WrestleMania to face The Rock. And I don't see WWE putting both titles on The Rock. I see them putting one title on him because he's going to be around even less than Roman is. So I don't see them putting both titles on Rocky. I could see them putting the Universal title on him just for a short period of time, have him away for a while. But I think the biggest moment you can give Drew McIntyre is winning the undisputed Universal title at Cardiff.
The chat chimes in and says the champ is the show. This is from Jeff. Otherwise, your main card will always seem weak. Wouldn't splitting the belts make that possible? Allison chimed in and says it allows the champs to be seen to be special and gives it more of a prestige type thing. Let me read a couple statistics off of you guys, and I want to see what you guys think about them, okay? Sure. One person had a title reign that was over 400 days, and he defended the title over 100 times. Then you have somebody who has a title reign of 700 days, and he's barely defended it 50 times. And I know you're going to go, what about house shows? I made sure to check those numbers too.
Will, I don't mean to cut you off, but huge thanks to Colossal Spear Bebe for following our Twitch channel. Thank you very much. I'm sorry, Will. I just wanted to thank them.
can't follow ours.
No, because we got you banned last night.
Bro, it was such a good show too, and now we're suspended again.
I'm sorry, Will. I just wanted to shout out the live viewer. Sorry.
So, anyways, a title defense. He had 400 days with the belt with over 100 title defenses. Then a person has the belt for 700 days, but only defends the belt 49 times. What do you think is the biggest? Like, do you view a 700-day reign with half the title defenses as much as you would a 400-day reign with over 100?
Depends on the matches.
Yeah.
Just how meaningful were the matches? How meaningful were the stories, the feuds?
Right. And I'm also pretty sure I know who you're talking about. Are we talking about the CM Punk WWE title reign?
Yeah.
Okay, so the one thing I'll have to say about that too is it's kind of hard to compare the two of those as well at the same time, because you had a guy like CM Punk who, when champion, he was a full-time wrestler. He was on the road full-time, whereas Roman is not. So I mean, they're both bringing star power to the company. They're both bringing in money. They're both bringing in ratings. I think it's a little, in my opinion, I think it's a little hard to compare the two of them, only because the two aren't on the same playing field with the amount of time that they're around.
Do you think it says something when a champion's working 200 days a yearly?
Not anymore.
Not anymore. You don't think that's the standard bearer? 1970. What was it? 19. No, it was 1986. Ric Flair worked 265 days or something like that year as champion. Do you think champions still need to have that kind of a work rate, and workload to stay on top of the business?
Well, Flair said he did that also because he hated being home. Yeah, let's Flair liked the life that was on the road as well, though.
He still does. Let's call a spade a spade.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like, this is like, the old school territory type, interview an old school wrestler and they'll tell you I was on the road 300 days. I don't get this new generation of wrestlers playing video games or treating it like a video game with the flip-flopping stuff that they do in the ring. That's how most interviews go with legends nowadays. I would say that it doesn't matter anymore because I don't think the new generation of fans really give a rat's ass. The house shows, as Kyle said, you can defend be on the road 300 days a year, defend it 300 days a year. How many of those matches really mean anything, though? Like, how many matches did Bruno Sammartino have when he defended the championship? How many of them, truly mattered? And again, you can compare the differences to then and now. His matches, any city he went to and defended his title probably meant something, and the reason is because there wasn't social media to, let the fans know. So like it had kept people on edge because they didn't know who had won by the time he got to the town the next night. It was only advertised Bruno Sammartino versus, say, Larry Sabisco for the WWF Championship. But it was always card subject to change because you wouldn't know if he won the night before or not. Nowadays, with social media and Uncle Dave, who's constantly, looking for people to give him results of house shows and this and that. The house shows, even when Alex and I have gone, and thank you WWE for comping tickets, but it felt more like them just practicing, like we watched Heath Slater just having fun dancing in the ring. And instead of like wrestling his own style, he wrestled like Stone Cold Steve Austin and was dropping Stone Cold stunners. Alex, if you remember, I tweeted at him and he retweeted it with the photo. AJ Styles, before there was a blue Universal Championship, grabbed the fans' blue custom Universal Championship and said, "I'll be holding this one day." Things like that. So like, to me, the house shows, and this is coming from me as an old school fan, I would look at it as back in the day, yeah, it absolutely matters. You should be defending your championship more. But nowadays, even to me, with this new style and new school of what professional wrestling is considered, or as Vince McMahon had even coined it back in the 80s, it's sports entertainment. It doesn't have the same effect to me as it would have 10, 15 years ago, as me being me. It just, I've lost, I don't want to say I've lost interest as far as that goes. But if I don't adapt to the new generation of wrestling, the new style of sports entertainment, then I'm just going to become a bitter old man who hates pro wrestling but is still watching it for God knows whatever reason. So if I don't,
You mean like Bret Hart?
yeah. So
Hi. My name is Will Gray, and you just described everything about who I am as a person.
Lee, fucking thank you, man.
Right.
So like
Thank you,
if I
God,
don't
for
adapt to this new school of wrestling, then I'm just going to be this bitter piece of shit who hates wrestling, but I can't understand why I'm watching it. But living in the past at the Hasbro bar, watching WWF Saturday main event, things like that.
Again, Bret Hart.
Yeah. So I have to adapt, and to me, it's no longer an issue that Roman's not defending his championship at every house show, that he's not defending at every Raw, SmackDown, any WWE related show there is. It's more meaningful when the title is defended in a bigger match with a great storyline, with purpose. Defending it 300 times a year doesn't scream that there's purpose to this. How did John Cena keep the United States Championship relevant? He defended it every week on Raw with a different challenger, but it was, you weren't getting the caliber of wrestlers you would expect John Cena to wrestler. You were actually getting those lower mid card guys coming out, which, gave them TV time, allowed the title to be seen on television, and allowed us to see John Cena work a match, even though it wasn't a desirable match, because they saved those for pay-per-views. Right. So they made meaningful championship defenses be on pay-per-view while he, had these matches on Raw. And the only reason why they had purpose was because he made it a special challenge.
Right.
Go ahead.
If they did that with the heavyweight championship, does the WWF championship really have purpose, even though you have it being defended every week? My answer would be now. The answer would be no. Back then it would be yes, because you're telling me it means something by giving opportunities. Now I would say no, because, well, you're just defending it too much and it doesn't mean anything. There's no story behind why this guy's coming out for you to wrestle him. There's nothing there.
Well, I think another thing that we also have to remember too that plays into this pretty big too is how WWE's wellness program has also changed a lot of things, because now they also take care of the wrestlers a lot better than they used to. For a point example, Seth Rollins, his injury in 2015, he got injured defending the title on a house show against Cade and was taken off of television, had to relinquish the title because of that. We've got guys like CM Punk when he was in WWE. His injuries that basically piled up and were one of the main driving factors behind him leaving WWE started because he was wrestling so many of those house shows. We've seen a lot of times over the years where champions had to relinquish titles due to injuries that they picked up on house shows. So I think defending the title less on house shows is actually probably a better thing, because it should be saved for pay-per-views, because then you don't have these guys getting taken out on injury. You don't have these guys being stripped of the title and having to change a title match for a pay-per-view. So we see a lot less, I think, of the house show wrestling with certain companies, not really WWE, because obviously they're still planning on going back to house shows, but a lot of these companies like AEW, for example, they don't run really house shows because they also don't want these guys getting hurt and being taken off of television.
I want to chime in too, just right behind you, Lee, to talk about a point you were making with the territories also is when you think about somebody like Flair, when he had the NWA World's title, every territory was a WWE or an AEW. Every territory had its own roster of stars. So if you think in, the peak of the territories, there were anywhere between 17 and 25 active territories in the United States, which means a week in each territory doing 2 or 3 shows a week meant, that in its own right there would have meant he would have spent half the year on the road just covering every territory. You see what I mean? Just to make sure he touched everywhere. And as the NWA World Champion, he was required to do that. Now, with there only being 2 big companies in the country and neither one of them cross-promoting with each other, if Roman wrestled 300 days a year, it would be Roman wrestling Bobby Lashley 8 times. It would be Roman wrestling Seth Rollins 25 times. It would be 13 matches against squash matches with people like, Ciampa, anybody they would do. That's what we would get. So I think that's a big reason why we don't see the 300-day workloads anymore. Kyle, completely changing the direction of this conversation right now because it's my show and I can do it.
Sick.
What do you think about Okada winning the G1?
Oh, he won the G1?
Yeah.
Oh, it's fantastic. Okada's awesome.
Do you
Look at that? We just got a live reaction.
Sick, man. That's cool. Yeah, Okada's the man, dude.
Do you think New Japan has a problem where they're over relying on him? Anytime they want that cheap pop, is Okada the Rock they bring back to get it?
Hell if I know. I'm not qualified to answer that.
Good answer.
I like Okada though. Anytime I want to show somebody like a real wrestling match, like quote unquote, I always throw on like his bangers with Kenny Omega. I'm like, if you want to, I was like, and it's normally for a certain person. So let me preface this before, because I'm telling you guys who all are big wrestling fans. What I mean is that non-wrestling fan who's like, the stuff is too choreographed, it looks too safe, it doesn't look like it hits that hard. I'm like, okay, let me show you this. I will show you something that will have you like wincing and cringing like in a good way. And so I love throwing on like especially their opening one, their first one that they did. Of their three legendary matches, which I still herald to this day as like probably one of, if not like the best. I don't know how you would call it, like feuds or string of matches, trilogies, like trilogy of matches. How about that? Yeah, Okada's the man. Like I'll be a fan of life. I'll be a fan for life watching that stuff, and then seeing even the lesser stuff that he did. His little part that he did with I noticed that he was pretty entertaining behind the scenes, like his feud with Marty Scurll, and he used to taunt him. Throwing up like the 205, like referencing that you're just going to be a 205 live wrestler if you ever go to WWE and shit.
Hell yeah.
No, that's awesome, dude. Good for Okada. He's cool. Is he being used too much? I don't know. Maybe. That's something more for like Marie or an underrated podcaster that doesn't get enough shine from our shows is Savannah over at She Elite Showcase. Those two live and bleed New Japan.
I think the cool thing about Okada though is he can manage to win these high profile tournaments and be back in the top spot while also putting over other people on the way to doing that. Like point in case during the G1, we just saw Jonah beat Okada. Jonah, who was, just Bronson Reed in WWE, and he was looking like he was going to be a good up and coming star. That match where he beat Okada basically made him.
I'll have to go back and watch that.
Yeah, it was a hell of a match.
Jonah's got me blocked on my personal account and my podcast account because I said when he was in WWE couldn't work like a big man.
Oh, that's cute.
So he blocked me.
Okada's a big deal for us though, us filthy casuals. You know what I mean? I know the joke is that AEW fans will pop for anything, but dude, it was deafening when Okada came out on Dynamite. And even though it was like essentially nothing, he'll always be like huge. Like he's a huge deal, man. He's an international star, like legitimate. That dude, you could put him anywhere, and I think he'd be a top guy, no matter where you put him. Unless it's TNA. In that case, they're just gonna stick him with it.
I was gonna say they already did stick him with it. He was like Samoa Joe's like lackey assistant when
he
Joe
was
in
the play on the Green
Mafia.
Hornet or something with like the black mask and everything.
He's like his spy and would like go around and just like videotape people.
I promise you, whoever stuck him with that shtick, like still cringes at night, like in the shower or when they lay in bed. I was like, how was I that fucking dumb? Like I had this international superstar, and that's what I did with it. You know what I mean?
Man, early TNA was known for that, though. Like, I mean, they kind of around like the 2008, 2009 mark kind of figured out how to use people. But early on, they like abused having people like Okada over, like Naito, like Tanahashi, CM Punk, even to a degree. There was so many high-profile stars. Even John Moxley did some time there. So many high-profile stars that came through early TNA who are mega stars now, and they could have been mega stars for that company if they were booked right.
Just had no idea what they were doing, man.
Nope. It's what happens when you allow Vince Russo to come in and be head of creative after he already basically helped drown a company.
Do you think that and I know I get a lot of flack for this. Do you not think that Vince inherited a shit show when he went to TNA though, with Dutch and what Dixie and them were already doing? Because he did come straight out of WCW, which he did sink. I'm not taking away from what he did there. But when he got the TNA, they were already booking electrified steel cage matches and shit like that.
Triple H just inherited a shit show, and look what he's done in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Well,
You're also an AEW shill though, Kyle, so you didn't like...
well, hold on.
I'm not, dude. I'm complimenting WWE.
I was gonna say-
Triple H legitimately inherited one of my most dreaded shows to watch every week, and now Raw for me is must see again. Like I have to see the same thing with SmackDown. Two people who inherited widely criticized products. No, man, Vince Russo is just prospectively, once again, I'm not there. Just seems like he's really bad at his job whenever you put him in that position, man.
Well, what I'll say is in Vince Russo's defense, he had 2 stints with TNA, early TNA and then the Dixie Carter era. The first time he came into TNA, Dixie wasn't part of the company yet. It was strictly still owned by the Jarretts. And there was some cringy stuff in early TNA. I will give him credit, though, on his second run with TNA. He was probably also bogged down by Dixie Carter making some decisions when she knew almost nothing about professional wrestling.
She was a music star.
Yeah.
Lee, let me ask you a question. Go ahead. You say what you got to say first, and then I have a question for you picked out.
Okay, so Vince Russo first joined TNA, and it was early 2003, right, Alex?
Yep, it was like 2002, 2003.
Yeah.
Well, 2002, he literally came right from WWE because he was in WWE at the time, but it was a very, very short stint.
Yep.
He wanted to recreate the WCW invasion angle, but he wanted to use stars that weren't used in the first one because we all knew that sucked, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
So he talked about this in our interview, youtube.com/Perched on Top Rope. Sorry, shameless plug. I do it all the time. But he talked about it, and we had asked about it because I wanted to know. He wanted to use stars like Bret Hart, Goldberg, Scott Steiner, the guys that weren't part of it the first time. I believe it was that run. No, Alex, was it the first run or the run in with Dixie where he created SEX?
That was the first run.
Okay, I honestly didn't think that was that bad.
No, it wasn't. That was actually a pretty entertaining faction.
Yeah, it was him, Disco Inferno, things like that. I thought that was entertaining that he had done. He did make some mistakes. We learned in TNA, like when we talked with Larry Sabisco. He cut the Larry Sabisco AJ Styles angle,
which was at the time probably their best angle that they had going.
It almost feels like it was out of spite. But
yeah, but then you go to a second run and you have the Claire Lynch angle.
Yeah. So I mean, mistakes are made. The man didn't always have the best reputation, but he did have some good stuff. So I mean, I'm trying to play devil's advocate here.
Yeah, that's fair.
I feel like when it comes to him, people want to go the needle all the way down and the needle all the way up. He was he could have been like, people want to argue that he was really, really great in this creative genius, and they pull up the Attitude Era, or he's absolute dog shit, and they bring up like the everything on a pole match, like his obsession with putting shit on poles.
Man likes poles, leave him alone.
What if we just agreed to say that he was like an average talented booker? Like, just because, I mean, dude, you could argue that like even, I mean, I know it's a weird one to bring up, but like even the Attitude Era, like if he was booking the Attitude Era today, like it would just, we would look at it as bad. Like
I think my issue was more that he tried to use the same booking for every company that he was in, and it didn't fit the mold for every company. His booking in the Attitude Era in WWE was absolutely fantastic. He, I would say, is one of the main reasons that the Attitude Era in WWE was so great. But then he tried to take that same mindset and bring it to both WWE and WCW and TNA, and there was a different vibe to both of those companies.
And that's kind of
TNA
like what an average performer does. They find something that works, and then they kind of just like stick to it. And then as the game evolves, they kind of was just like, I'm going to stick to what got me a good result before. And then you get diminishing returns, and it's not as good anymore.
Right.
I beg to differ on this average booker ordeal, because during the WWF Attitude Era, and Alex, you remember, Vince talks about this, there was only 2 writers, Vince Russo, Tony Gurria. WWE right now per show has like 20 writers freaking each. You had 2 writers during the Attitude Era. You 2 main writers, I should say. Those were the 2. They wrote out everything.
He also...
I'm sorry, you can't tell me he was an average at this.
No, you can start out good, and then your skills can diminish over time. And then you got to take the average. You have to average it out. You can't be like one guy that nailed a home run and had a really good game, and then he had a subpar career afterwards, and be like, that guy is as great as he was that one game. You have to average out the whole career and base it off of that assessment.
I agree.
Yeah, like...
I'm doing that too, but I wouldn't say he was average. Because during, whether it was the Attitude Era, WCW, TNA, anywhere that man went, it didn't matter if you were the world champion or if you were the guy on your back every week. You had a storyline. You had a reason why you were on TV. And he was able to do that with anyone and everyone that was on the roster, whether he liked you or not. You were on television. If you were on the roster, you were on television. And that's why I say he's above average, because you have guys today that there's people sitting in the back catering, and Daniel Bryan has said this, that hope they don't even get picked to wrestle because they don't want to go wrestle on main event. They don't want to go wrestle on Superstars. They'd rather sit in the back. But Vince Russo, as a booker, he got everybody on television and everybody got a spot.
Yeah, I'll give him, I mean... You'd have to be at least a little above average to keep getting employed. I'll give him that, but I don't think I could ever call him like great. You know what I mean? Like, I just can't, man. Because for every Attitude Era stuff, there's Judy Bagwell on a pole, there's Viagra on a pole, there's a lot of the crazy shit in TNA. You know, like I said, look, man, like, it's okay to be heralded as like, at least you're ticking. I'll say this, at least you're on the good side of things and you're not an overall bad guy.
Let me ask you a question then, Kyle. When you talk about the issues with him overbooking matches, this is some of the same stuff that TK is catching flack for right now, because on AEW free TV we're getting casket matches and, you know, blood and guts matches and street fights and barbed wire exploding death matches. Do you think AEW is overbooking their free TV then, playing devil's advocate with you?
No, absolutely, man.
Yeah.
I know the in joke is I'm an AEW shill. It's I love the people in AEW and I love the wrestling. I am starving for some creativity over there though, in the story department. Like, I really am. And then of course like the women's stuff. But yeah, absolutely, man. They're overdoing it. They're trying to, I think what happened is Tony Khan, he doesn't want to level out. You know what I mean? He hit the ground running so hard for years 1 and 2. And I think right now he's having trouble. There's a couple factors that come into play, but I think in his mind, he wants to maintain that level of hypeness for every single show. And yeah, but I will say this, when it comes to overbooking stuff too, I am a fan of overbooking in certain areas, man. Like, you know, I love overbooked matches. I love it when a match can break down to like a clusterfuck at times. You know what I mean? And then at the same breath, I'd like another match, which is like a no nonsense, like just technical masterpiece.
Well, I think if you're going to overbook matches too, you got to make sure you're not overbooking them in the same way every time. It can't be a run in every time. It can't be a ref bump every time. TNA in their worst days was known for ref bump at the end of every match during the second Vince Russo era. And that was one of the biggest things that put people off during the end of that Spike TV era.
Let me ask you guys a question while we're on the topic of overbooking. Lee, I want your 2 cents on this one. Okay? Brett Lauderdale and the guys over at GCW are in the current processes of booking a War Games death match. Do you guys think somebody will legitimately die if they do a war game style death match where they trap these guys in 2 cages stretched between 2 rings with 8 guys in there with GCW doing GCW things?
I don't want to say. Who's in the match? That'll help me.
They haven't printed the cards yet, but everything is pointing towards it going to be a King of the Death match, Nick Gage and a couple of his buddies versus the other side of GCW. Matt Cardona's name has been brought up because he's been doing the King of the Death match stuff, which I think is complete bullshit. But Maria in the chat has already chimed in and said yes, someone is gonna die that quick. What do you guys think about it? GCW doing a war game style death match.
I mean, I'll go ahead.
And this is where I'll agree with our former host, Rob Hockman. Rob and I talked about this when we were going over our thoughts on GCW on one of our shows a couple months back. I think GCW is absolute hot garbage. I don't find them entertaining at all. I think it is a shout out to the people who still haven't gotten over the fact that ECW folded, the original ECW, that is. And I don't find their product entertaining. I think it's garbage. So I'm going to be biased, unfortunately, on this one. And I don't care, honestly.
So Alex, you're telling me you didn't watch Backyard Fest 4 or whatever it was where they were out there wrestling on trampolines? You didn't.
I can tell you that. I can tell you I have no idea what that even is.
Attaboy. That right there. Lee? You look like you had something to say.
Yeah, to compare GCW and ECW are really...
I'm not comparing them. I'm just saying that their fan base is a bunch of people that never got over the fact that ECW folded. I'm not saying they're the same show. I'm saying it's almost a knockoff dedication to the people that never got over the fact that the show folded.
Well, you pretty much just described every time somebody runs a show in Philadelphia, though, because every wrestler I've ever interviewed has said the same thing about the Philadelphia crowd, is that ever since ECW came in the fold there, all they've wanted is that same feel for that city. Everybody wants that same blood, guts, broken tables, beat the shit out of each other and go with it.
Yeah, no, you're right. I would agree then. That's my opinion on that too. I like blood and I like weapons and violence here and there in wrestling now. I don't think that 2022 is a time or place where we need that to be the entire match of the entire card, every single match. I don't think it has a place in wrestling in 2022.
Agreed.
So they do. It's basically the next evolution of extreme wrestling is the way I look at it. ECW did not use glass tables or really glass anything. The one time we saw it in WWE, we saw Hardcore Holly smash the Big Boss Man with a glass pitcher in his face in 1999, and the Big Boss Man got glass in his eye and broke his skin open, and that was the last time we saw it in WWF. Never really saw it in ECW, though we did see some, crazy stuff with tables being lit on fire and things to that barbed wire matches. Sabu literally using duct tape to tape his skin together to avoid stitches or not having to finish a match. Companies like GCW and even CZW are the next evolution of that. They're using sawzalls, and Dean Ambrose was one of them doing it, or John Moxley, as we know him now in AEW, using sawzalls. My opinion, like Alex, I like ECW. I don't like the death matches, that Japan did with Mick Foley, Terry Funk, guys like that.
Not an FMW guy.
Nah, I'm not a GCW fan because it is over the top. What is to happen? You break, you go through this glass table and the glass ends up sticking straight up and you end up stabbed and can die, Like a huge chunk of glass like this breaks off in your skin in the middle of the match.
It's not safe.
We saw how David Arquette completely freaked out when he got cut in the neck and quickly ended the match, because you don't know if that cuts, right into the jugular. It's over. You just ended you just ended your life for a match that you're getting paid $1,000 for. That your hospital bill is going to be a lot more money then. Like
Allison in the chat says death by pizza cutter.
That is not that is not for love of the sport. That is just straight stupidity, in my opinion. I respect the craft of all forms of professional wrestling, but at some point you draw a limit, you draw a line where you say, okay, well, if I know it's going to cost more than the hospital bill, I'm not going in and doing it. Mm-hmm. That makes no sense to me. Like, now, so like for this, it's the next evolution when you see stuff like that. But it's garbage. It's not. Rob Van Dam referred to guys like New Jack as trash, and that's what they are. This style to me is trash. I know I said I respect all forms, but this is just it's trash. I get people like it. I get why they enjoy it. I don't enjoy it. Good for you for enjoying it. My jacket might be covered in blood, but I mean, there's a whole different story. I took a brood bath after work. I couldn't get this out. So it doesn't. I don't know why we still have wrestlers going out there and doing this, knowing the risks that they're going to take. Like, I'm sorry, but me personally, I don't want to watch someone get body slammed or choke slammed on a bunch of cement bricks. I don't want to watch it. I don't want to watch you staple a piece of paper to some guy's head. I don't want to see you take a pizza cutter and blah, blah, blah when you can't go to the goddamn dentist and fix your fucking teeth when you're missing your front fucking tooth and about 15 others, dude. Ooh. Go to a goddamn dentist. Go to a hygienist. Get yourself fucking looked at.
Shots at Nick Gage.
Fucking psychiatrist, for Christ's sakes, man. It's just like, look at the fans themselves. It's like going to any other indie show, but this one's worse because it's like in a field days with people who didn't get past the third fucking grade.
Allison.
Yeah, no, the
Allison one thing says she loves you, Lee. Everything you just said.
There's one singular thing that I will give GCW, and it's not even something I know from watching their products. It's just from seeing it on social media. The one thing I will say that GCW has contributed to the modern era of wrestling has been, I was going to say, is a career renaissance for Matt Cardona, because I think without what he did in GCW, he wouldn't have had the character shift that he did. So if GCW did one thing, I think it's that they helped Matt Cardona revive his career.
Did GCW do it, or did Matt Cardona do it?
Well, I mean, obviously, in that situation, if it happened at GCW, it's got to be a little bit of both. Without one, it didn't happen.
Without Matt Cardona, I didn't know what GCW was, and I wouldn't have given a rat's ass what it is. Right, and I don't today, because I respect the form and the people that enjoy it, whatever, even though I just trash the shit out of them. That's a fucking oxymoron if I ever heard of it. But
I gotta say, it's a little column A, column B, because that is where it took place. But so I would say if one thing in the modern era came out of GCW, it was Matt Cardona's career renaissance.
But we're seeing more modern guys go there, because just like in early ECW, after it became Extreme Championship Wrestling, not while it was Eastern Championship Wrestling, they had the technicians of Voldemort, the name we do not speak, Chris Benoit. Dean Malenko had those guys having great technical matches. The Lucha Libre of Psychosis taking on Rey Mysterio, and they still added an extreme element to it. With Rey jumping from a balcony down to Psychosis doing the Hurricane Rana, like a whole balcony down. So like they added elements and had added different variations of wrestling. They weren't just that extreme style. They gave the fans a little bit of everything. And then Eric Bischoff came in and said, yeah, I'll scoop half that roster. Thank you very much.
Oh. So quickly, before we continue talking about GCW, has anybody been paying attention to what's going on SmackDown tonight?
No, sir. But break it. What's up?
It looks like Sheamus won the #1 contenders match for the Intercontinental Championship and will face Gunther at Clash in the Castle. That is going to be a fucking amazing match.
That will be a huge match.
Yeah, especially for over there. They needed that's
now. On a funnier little note too, it was also just released that that the episode of SmackDown that is being held in in Canada that the Usos were not allowed to enter the country due to their DUI arrests.
Really?
Yeah, they were barred from coming into Canada.
Well, that makes sense because if you get arrested for a DUI, you're not allowed in Canada for 10
For
years.
like 10 years, yeah. They're really strict about DUIs.
Yeah.
I just wanted to break that a little bit, but hell yeah, no, Sheamus versus Gunther. I knew they were talking about possibly doing it, but that's going to be a barn burner of a match.
Well, strip them of the belts. You can't come to Canada, strip them of the belts. Give them to a Canadian team for the night. Let them defend them.
Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn.
There you go. The conspiracy theories. Remember, that's what.
Well, while we're
Yeah,
talking,
no.
while we're talking
Go
about
ahead,
while we're talking about ECW, TK recently said in an interview that he sees himself being more of a Paul Lee than a Vince McMahon. What do you guys think about that? Do you think do you see more Paul Heyman? Do you see more Vince McMahon? Or do you think TK's just full of shit and is just trying for clout to say he's like two of the best bookers in the last 100 years?
So I like what TK does when it comes to trying to give the fans what they want. You know, he's done a lot of good. He's given us a lot of stuff that we wanted to see in WWE or TNA in the past. He's given us a lot of matches, a lot of angles that we wanted to see, but I cannot get over how much I think this man is full of himself. You know, as much as everything that Vince McMahon has done recently leading up to his resignation was awful. Everything he did to any of those women were awful. To basically compare yourself to him hours after he resigned and retired and say, you know, you're the longest reigning CEO or president of a company, which wasn't true either. Didn't even count companies like New Japan, because I don't even think he said in the US. I think he just said in general. You didn't count companies like New Japan or anything else. I think the man sometimes he's his own worst enemy because he tries to hype himself up so much. And I think if he just did what he does I don't think he's a bad booker. I think if he just did what he does without trying to hype himself up and make it about him all the time on social media, I think he'd be fine. I think Tony Khan, the one thing he just needs to do is to stop talking about himself so much.
Kai Tai.
He's a fucking billionaire. And you guys want this man, not you, Alex, and you guys want this man to be relatable. He's a son of a billionaire. Like, dude's gonna be fucking cuckoo with his self-perception. The fact that anybody judges him based off of like the merit of their peers is fucking silly. It's so goddamn silly because any one of your peers, if they became a billionaire, would be a fucking crazy person. And TK is a crazy person. The fact that he's comparing himself to Paul Lee and Vince McMahon or all that like that crazy stuff, it's the signs of a crazy person who is a billionaire. I think it's so hilarious that people like, if this man should act a certain way, this and that, the constant just like bickering of how other people should compose themselves and can carry their business is, I always found ridiculous, especially when that man operates and lives on a different existence than 99.9% of this planet. You know, it is what it is. I don't look into a word he says because there's no way I could fathom myself ever relating to a thing that man says. Like it's just not a fair concept to have. As a booker, the guy, I can say this, like watching Dynamite, he needs people who are experienced storytellers. Like we can tell that the man doesn't have an easy time telling stories. We have like 2 years of this great Hangman Page story, and then he wins the belt, and then he has a bunch of like poor matches and feuds, and he loses the belt, and now where's Hangman? Like he's gone. Like he severely lacks creativity wise. But if there's anything that he does do that no one can deny, he does try to be a fan pleaser. The man tries to appease his fan base for the most part. But for the fact that people talk about how this man should carry himself, how he should talk, it's just like, yo, first of all, get $1 billion. Go get $1 billion and then see how you act. Like we would all act like fucking self-pretentious assholes. You know what I mean? Like I firmly believe it. I always find it silly when I just find it silly. I do.
Allison says he's a child playing fantasy booker with daddy's money. Marie says if I had $1 billion, I wouldn't be crazy.
Yeah, Marie, you're already crazy. Okay, Marie, like you're already there. All right, like calm down.
Well, gentlemen, I have one more question for you before we plug it and get ready to go. And this one is it's going to be anticlimactic. I wish I had something better for the end of it. But do you think ratings are going to be the end of AEW with them seeing a drop? Do you think a TV deal is going to be the make or break for the company? If they lose the TV deal with TNT or TBS and they have to go somewhere other than Turner, do you think that AEW will fold without a good TV deal?
Is there talk about them folding or TV deals? Their ratings, they've kind of just hit their plateau. Their ratings aren't going anywhere. They've hit their base 900,000, 1 million fans. It's not going up or down.
No, as far as Dynamite, yeah, but Rampage is like damn near barely hanging to like the last 3 weeks. I believe Rampage has been 438,000, 430,000, 469,000. They're not like NXT 2.0 has even like at least gone up to in the ratings of at least being 600,000, staying around that area. So like Rampage has dropped. As far as Dynamite, it while it's stuck in plateau mode, it does like a little of this, little rocky at the top, going up and down, but they that show still hangs around 900 to 1 million, which is I would say it's fine because I see nothing wrong with that. Where I see the issue is the long-term storytelling is not there. Storytelling really in general, it's there, but it's not there. Like you just got feuds, but like storytelling wise, there's not much there in depth to the stories. So you're kind of just like, oh, okay. Then you have AEW Dark and Dark Elevation where there's just no storylines whatsoever. It's 15 matches, 2 promos, and you're just like, okay, it's all the same. So if they lost a TV deal, would it be the end of AEW? It hasn't been the end of MLW without having one. It has not been the end of Impact. They have a TV deal, even though, like I said, finding the channel is not easy in some areas. And I'm pretty sure for Alex and I, we don't have it. Which means YouTube. We don't have New Japan over here, and they're still being, we still watch it in ways.
Allison says everyone in AEW is always hurt.
Well, in 2022 they are.
Yeah.
So like for the most part, the injury bug didn't hit them that hard during the COVID era.
Well, I would say with the storytelling, while it might not be the greatest, it's definitely better than when they first started.
Agreed. The booking from year 1 to year 3 is definitely better.
Yeah. I think a couple things play into whether the ratings affect the show at all. The first one being that just because the ratings have plateaued right now doesn't mean that they're going to stay at a plateau. TNA, for example, from 2002 to 2007 or 2008-ish, they plateaued at a really low ratings level, but then 2008, 2009, like right before Hogan and Bischoff came in, they spiked right up. They had, like during that main event Mafia era, they had some really good shit going on TV, and their ratings spiked. They were starting to hit 1 million themselves. So the ratings, those can always go up depending on what they're putting out for a product on television at that given time. So that one's kind of hard to judge based on what we're seeing on TV right now versus what's going to be on TV in the future. The other thing I think plays into is if we end up eventually getting a streaming platform for AEW, just like the WWE network for WWE, because if they end up coming up with their own network, the ratings aren't really going to matter anymore. Just like how for WWE, between their YouTube page and the WWE network, the ratings don't mean a whole lot to them anymore. Obviously, they want to keep USA and Fox happy, but they have multiple other ways to create revenue from fans and to keep people watching than just cable TV. And most of us are honestly, even if we don't use the network or whatever, a lot of us are streaming the television show online now.
I'm a DVR guy. I
I was
DVR
about to
all
say,
of my live
yeah.
wrestling the next day. I don't. But see, I do. This is my 2 cents throwing it in though. I don't like the bullshit intros. I think it's stupid that it takes 8 guys. It takes a guy 8 minutes to get through his thing. I just said this the other night. I was at a mud show, an indie show rather, and it took a guy 4 minutes to get from the entrance ramp to the ring to where his entire song played. Not the intro, the 30 seconds. The entire full-length radio edit of his song played while he was walking to the ring. And I remember going, does even an indie entrance need to take 4 minutes, 6 minutes, 8 minutes? And I feel like that's why I fast forward through that shit, is because I don't want to sit through it. You know what I mean? If I know somebody can't talk, I'm not going to watch a bullshit promo where I have to listen to Ronda Rousey fumble through words for 45 seconds.
Yeah, those long entrances are reserved only for people like Triple H and The Undertaker.
Agreed.
I was just
Roman.
about to say, what does he think he's
Yeah,
going to
Romans too.
I was there at SummerSlam. Roman's entrance was literally so long, it gave the crew time to set up that tractor. That tractor was not part of the set all night. They literally drove that thing out there mid-Roman's entrance and were able to do a 3-point turn with it and take 2 attempts to back it into where it needed to be before Roman ever hit the ring or his pyro went off.
Yeah, the only time I'll make exceptions for entrances going that long is if the theme songs are absolute bangers. And I think in situations like a guy like Triple H, a guy like The Undertaker, even Roman Reigns, because I love the new theme song. I can do it with those guys. But when you've got me listening to Ronda Rousey or Liv Morgan or like Sami Zayn's theme song, not that those aren't bad, but like they're kind of like a little more generic than some of the top guys. And you've got me sitting there listening to that theme song for like 4 or 5 minutes plus commercial break. I zone out.
You know who's got a banger of a theme song?
Who's that?
The Briscoe Brothers.
Disco Inferno.
Fucking Disco Inferno, Lee. That's the 3rd time tonight you've brought him up. Do you got something
That's
you
his
want to
favorite
talk
wrestler.
about? You got something? You got something you get off your chest there, bud? You got
That's
something?
favorite.
I'm a huge Disco Inferno fan. That's all.
See, I'm a Russo guy, and I get a lot of heat for that. People are like, "How can you like him?" And I was like, "All he did was go to work and did his job. He made you hate him. That's on you." Like,
True.
yeah, he went to work. He did his job. I mean, did he do his job well? Maybe not. Not most of the time, but like, he was good enough to get hired by the top 3 companies in his business. So I mean, he did something right, or at least the top 3 companies at the time.
So I'm saying, I was like, the man knew how to get hired. You
Yeah.
know, the man knew how to get a job. Like, oh gosh.
What I'm asking for is, can we just have an episode of Raw where the whole 3 hours is just listening to Edge's theme song? I could listen to that for days.
Dude, Judgment Day's theme song like fucks me up because I'm still expecting to hear Edge's voice like
Yeah.
over the intro.
So you think you know me? You
Yeah,
never
no,
did.
you never did. Dude, I was like, dude, that's so bad. Like, oh, Edge.
But Alter Bridge just makes up for it every time. I love that band so much.
Oh my gosh.
I'm gonna end it on Alter Bridge, Alex. That was the breaking point for me.
Shit.
Oh, like one more banger. It's just unfortunate they could never play. Is Our Lady Pieces, whatever. Chris Benoit's theme. What a tragedy that song cannot be enjoyed anymore. Considering that is like one of the best fucking wrestling themes ever, man.
Can we talk about the subtle Chris Benoit reference that Cody Rhodes made during the Stone Cold podcast recently that he did? They did that little preview before he was on the show where Stone Cold does like the 30 seconds and he asks all the questions. And he asked what Cody Rhodes' favorite band was, and he said blatantly, he said Our Lady Peace.
Our Lady Peace, yeah, man.
I'm like, oh my God, they actually allowed that to be aired.
Well, yeah, because only like old fuckers like us are going to get the reference.
Mm-hmm.
I
You know what I mean?
I have Our Lady Peace lyrics tattooed on me. They're not even my favorite band. It was just a great lyric.
Lee and I have a fun little outstanding inside joke where when I will come over to hang out at his house, like we'll come over to play 2K, and he'll be like up at his parents, like just hanging out with them or whatever, because they live like a block away, and I'll get to his house before he does, and I'll go inside. That light that's above him is a Bluetooth speaker, and I'll sit there, I'll link by Spotify to the speaker, and I'll just wait like in the stairs around the corner. And the moment Lee walks in, I just start playing Chris Benoit's theme song on him. And one time I came around the corner with like a big Thanos glove on him and just scared the hell out of him.
let's state it here, man. Like, I understand canceling Chris Benoit. Let's uncancel his theme music, though.
Yeah, Our Lady Peace didn't do anything wrong.
God damn it. Yeah, stop punishing them.
For real.
Well,
Give it
gentlemen,
back.
this is my favorite part of every episode because I don't have to say anything. I'm going to ask you guys to plug your stuff. Tell us, everybody, what you got going on, where to find you, and all of that nonsense. Alex, you're the Botch Bots and Chair Shots virgin, sir. You get to go first this time.
Fair enough. So what I will say, because I know Lee's going to want to do most of the plugging, is that Perch Gaming has returned. We showed up last night with our Jeopardy game. Unfortunately, due to a chatbot entering the chat, we are suspended for the time being. We are going to appeal that, hopefully be back soon. In the meantime, I do plan on bringing Perch Gaming to YouTube or Facebook. In the meantime, we will be back. Even if it's not on Twitch, we will be bringing Perch Gaming back to a platform near you. We're going to start probably polling the audience soon to see what kind of games you want me to play. Kyle and I had a talk the other day where we're going to try and branch out and not just stick to wrestling games so we can kind of get some more people coming and checking out our stuff. So I'm going to start polling everybody soon. We're going to start seeing what kind of games you want to see me or Lee play, and Perch Gaming will be coming back to you soon. Lee, would you like to plug the rest of the show for me?
Ladies and gentlemen, every Tuesday drops Wednesday on the podcast. You can check the Perched correspondent Justin Largertoe and I on our very new podcast, Perched on the Top Shelf, where we talk anything and everything action figure related. As you see, I'm a big fan of the WWF Hasbros. You can also check us out on Facebook as we reached our 10,000 likes and more. Facebook.com/Perched on the Top Rope. You can follow us on TikTok, where we broke 1,000 followers, and now we can go live. You can see some incredible things like Selena scenes, where I take Celine Dion's "My Heart Will Go On" and tie it into the greatest wrestling moments in professional wrestling history. And the last one I had done was WrestleMania 32, Zack Ryder winning the Intercontinental Championship, because if you want to tell me that is not one of the greatest moments in professional wrestling history, you are a liar, and I am better than you. And if none of that tickles your fancy, ladies and gentlemen, you can watch former WCW superstar, that's right, former WCW superstar, get humped by a dog, Kevin Sullivan. Yes, that is
You
TikTok.
bastard.
That is TikTok, Perched on the Top Rope.
Bastard.
You can follow us on Twitter at Perched Top Rope. You can follow us on Instagram at Perched on the Top Rope Podcast. You can follow our podcast anywhere and everywhere, from Apple, Google, Spotify, Stitcher, Podbean, Podbay, Red Circle, you name it, we are there. It's Perched on the Top Rope. And because you listen so much, we want to thank all the fans that have gotten us on their chartables in their countries. Thank you, and thank you for tuning in every week. On Fridays, our episodes of Perched on the Top Rope drop for the podcast. You can check all the YouTube videos, great interviews from Larry Sabisco, Booker T, rest in peace, Road Warrior Animal, Gilberg, guys in MLW from Kelvin Tankman, Jordan Oliver, guys in Impact Wrestling, the Iconics from WWE. Holy crap, there's a ton of stuff there. It is youtube.com/Perched on the Top Rope. As Alex said, he'll be going live from Facebook or YouTube with the Perched Gaming, so make sure you check that out. That is usually on Sundays. Ladies and gentlemen, I have a saying. If you don't know it, it's fine, because I'm not regularly on this show. Spoiler free is the way to be. Kyle, thank you for having us on tonight.
Kai Tai.
Oh, it Will deserves the thanks. Tonight's his show.
Yeah, Will, thank you.
Yeah. Hey man, thank you. This was fun. I really like coming on to Botched Spots, man. It's dope. I have a show. I like all of us do. It's me and RN. We really just shoot the shit like two delinquents on Sundays on the Rewind. We're doing top tens though. Trying to mix it up a little bit, give some individual segments. This week, if you want to catch it, is during our show, we're going to cover top 10 wrestlers that we believe will not flourish under the Triple H regime. Other than that, yeah, man, gaming right here, twitch.tv/SmackRaw, youtube.com/SmackRaw podcast, where you can find all of our shows if you don't catch them live. And then I'm on Twitter at SmackRawPod and at the Kai Tai Show. Dude, like this is awesome. I appreciate you guys. Upcoming show, I'm going to convince these guys sometime in the next week. Follow us on Twitter. Bringing 20-second challenge back. I will have my revenge on Alex for stacking the deck against Smacked Raw on his Jeopardy show. It's going to be hilarious. I promise you, if you tune in, we will find a way to humiliate Alex on the show. So tune in, 20-second challenge. Check out our Twitter to find an update exactly what date and time that we throw this all together.
Brother, you can't humiliate me more than I can humiliate myself.
That's kind of how it's gonna be done, though. You know.
Okay.
Also, remember to follow RN at Mr. 8984 over on Twitter. Make sure to follow the boss bitch, Miss Allison, at Just a Girl 918 for all the important stuff, Smacked Raw Podcast Network. Remember to follow the Indie Wrestling Gazette at Indie Gazette. If you have any interest whatsoever in indie wrestling, that is the spot to find it. It's a new newsletter and periodical we're putting out from the team at Botched, Bots, and Chair Shots, solely focused on the independent wrestling scene. But here I go. Now, as we close another episode of Botched, Bots, and Chair Shots, I want to take a minute and thank you for listening. Remind you to go wherever you do anything on the internet. Facebook, Instagram, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Google. Literally, you have all the options. Like, follow, subscribe, unsubscribe, then subscribe again. Leave a comment telling me how great I am or how terrible I sound. Either way, it helps the algorithm and it helps find new listeners. If you're feeling really generous and be one of the VIP people, head over to the Smacked Raw Podcast Network on Patreon and donate to the Smacked Raw cause. You get some fantastic swag. We get some free guests. It's a win-win. For Lee Walker, for Alex, and for Mr. Kyle Tyson, I am the Will Gray. Thanks for stopping by and listening, my people.